This presentation is about my restoration of an early Dutch staartklock, and staartklock translates into tail clock, the tail being the part hanging down below the hooded movement. Many of this style of clock came from the Friesland and the Groningen provinces, and as you can see from this map, they are the very northern end of the Netherlands. To be honest, I was not looking to buy one of these clocks. I was simply browsing the internet, and especially eBay, and came across this clock, which appeared to be almost derelict and in much need of love and care. You can notice on the description that even the guy that was selling it has said this is not a clock for the faint-hearted. The case is almost falling apart. Well, there's nothing better than a challenge. The next couple of slides will show you the condition in which I received this clock. The vendor obviously was not concerned about the condition of the clock at my end, because it was simply thrown into a packing case with no other packing around it. It was flogging around inside a cardboard box all the way from the Netherlands, and when it arrived I was amazed to find that the glass had not been broken, because the box it was in was severely damaged. He wasn't wrong when he said the case is falling apart. The red starbursts show parts missing, damaged or broken. Most importantly, the entire movement was intact, despite the fact that it was rusted and covered with spider webs. Nevertheless, the beauty of a movement can be seen in the detail of the posts and the detents. If you are tone deaf, then Dutch striking is not for you. With two bells incorporated into the unusual striking system. On the hour, it strikes on the large bell. At the half hour, it strikes the hour on the small bell. It also strikes the first quarter on the large bell once, and the third quarter on the small bell once. So it becomes rather difficult to determine what the time is by the striking. This is what really attracted me to the purchase of this clock. The dial is a beautiful hand-painted dial. It has a moon phase dial in the top. It has an alarm disc at the center and a calendar through a small aperture at 6. The corners are painted in the 4 seasons, and in the center is a lake scene. This is what really attracted me to this clock, a beautiful hand-painted dial. It included a moon phase disc at the top in the arch, an alarm disc at the center of the dial, a calendar through an aperture at 6, the 4 corner spandrel areas painted for the 4 seasons, and in the center of the dial, a beautiful lake scene. Under all the grime, the old paint, was a beautiful oak case. Rebuilding it, I found that there were no screws or nails used in this case. It was all done with wooden pegs. Once it had been cleaned and then lacquered, the case came up beautifully. Typically with start clocks, the pendulum oscillates inside a box as part of the tail. That was completely missing on this clock. So I had to construct what's called the slider panel, because it slides up from below up into the bottom of the hood. The pendulum then oscillates inside that box and is visible through an aperture with a grill. So here is the new slider panel made from reclaimed old oak, front and back, and you can see on the right hand side how the shape is built up from blocks and then detailed to conform to the shape of the backboard, which is part of the original case. Spare parts for these clocks are readily available in the Netherlands. Parts are still being made authentically to the exact design and from the same materials as they were made back in the 1700s. So I purchased what I considered to be one of the nicest of the grills and applied that to my slider panel, and through that you can see the pendulum. It was then stained and lacquered to match the original timber on the case, and with a set of the nice weights, the clock is beginning to look like it really should. The minute hand was obviously not the original, as it's more like a Scottish long case hand with a thistle in the circle at the end of the hand. But as I said, from the Netherlands, these hands are still readily available in the original design, and it was not difficult at all to obtain a minute hand of the correct length and of a matching design to suit the original hour hand. When I saw the dial in its original condition on the clock, I could envisage straight away how beautiful this dial would look when it was restored. And I think you'll agree, looking at these two pictures here, having restored the numerals, the half-hour arrows, the chapter ring, the minute marks, and cleaned up the dial to remove rust, grime and dirt, that the dial looks absolutely brilliant. Cleaning the rust, grime and grease from this dial revealed the beautiful detail of the original hand-painted artwork. Look at the two Dutch sailing ships in the hemispheres of the moon phase aperture. Look at the detail in the woman in the left-hand corner. Look at the gold leaf that has remained up around the arch, all beautiful and still intact, hidden under the dirt and grime for centuries. Having cleaned the dial and revealed a lot of the detail, I further enhanced that detail by applying 2 coats of Winsor & Newton's Artist's Matte Varnish. Now this is made so that you can easily remove it if necessary, so it doesn't damage the artwork, it just enhances the colour and protects it. Moving on to the mechanism, a complete strip down to get rid of all of the rust from the frame and clean up the brass work and get everything operating correctly again. Typically on the staarklok movements, they have an iron plate top and bottom, and these are always painted with a red oxide protective paint. But the brass work is beautifully done. Here's the finished movement, completely restored, cleaned, all cobwebs, rust, grime gone. You can see the calendar ring behind the dial on the left, and above that is the moon phase disc. Here's the top of the movement, showing the 2 hammers and their counter springs and the bells. And you can see I've marked the bells because, as with most bells, the hole at the top is usually a little bit off center, so that you can rotate the bell to adjust the clearance between the hammer and the bell to give you a good clean sound hit. There's no reason at all for a movement to look this beautiful and to be so well made when it's going to be hidden inside a wooden case. But the craftsmen of these days took great pride in their workmanship, and it's easily seen in the quality of the turnings and the posts and the detents and the wheels There's one piece in particular that really amazes me. A craftsman puts what you might consider to be a bit of a joke inside his movement, and it's here, which is the locking piece on the count plate at the back, and it's a horse's head, and we'll see more of that in the next slide. Never to be seen, and yet here we find a true horse's head, and you will see when the clock is striking, this little horse will run. See the video and you'll see what I mean. The next 3 slides are simply to show you the finished article. You'll be able to examine the finer details of the mechanism of this wonderful clock. This is an original set of weights for a staarklok. They did not come with the clock. I was able to buy them on Dutch marktplaats, which is similar to Australian Gumtree, but they are an original lead-filled brass weight set. Described originally as not for the faint-hearted, but there you are, fully restored, fully operational, time, strike and alarm. A truly beautiful 18th century Dutch staartklok. Thanks for watching this presentation. I hope it was informative for you. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make, send me an email to the address shown below. Thank you very much.